Hi everyone, welcome to this video session on Serverpod. In this session, we will explore the powerful capabilities of Serverpod. As the tagline suggests, how Serverpod enables us to write servers backend codes for our Flutter app in Dart. With pure Dart, we can develop both our Flutter app and our backend server code. We will see exactly the same. So before starting, as a quick run through, in this tutorial we will be covering these sections. So first of all, of course, we will be looking at setting up Serverpod, how to make our first server up and running. We will see exactly the same, and we will see how to connect with our database, basically Postgres. That will be the database we will be using. So we'll see how to connect. Basically, Serverpod gives a Dockerized database under the hood, but we will see how to, if you are not comfortable with Docker, we'll see how to achieve it without Docker also. So yeah, and this it will be the crux of this tutorial, a to-do app. We will be developing a to-do app with all the CRUD functionalities like creating a to-do, reading a to-do, updating and deleting a to-do. These four operations we will cover, and we'll see how to query our database, how to update these data into our database and retrieve it from our Flutter app. Yeah, that will be the crux. Then we will also be doing authentication using Serverpod. So Serverpod is basically giving basically making it easy for us to do authentication. So there are different types of authentication that we can do, like email password authentication, Google authentication, Apple authentication, Firebase. We can even create our own custom authentication flows. So Serverpod is supporting all those stuff. So we will see how Serverpod is enabling us this, and we will mostly cover email password authentication. If you know any one authentication uh, correctly now, the other thing is just straightforward, we can just understand that. So we will also connect these authenticated data users with their own to do. So we will also see how to enable relationships in a database. Okay, we will also see how to achieve migrations in database. So these all are the crux of this tutorial, and also we will see some common Docker commands that will be useful for us in this while we are working with Serverpod. So feel free, Docker is not a complete necessity for this uh, tutorial. If you are not comfortable with Docker, don't worry, I will show you other ways to work without Dockers. So, and also it is also always good to know Dockers as well, right? So we will be updating our database, so using some Docker commands it will be easy for us to visualize our data in Postgres. So we look at some Docker commands as well. Yeah, so this is the a quick overview on what all we will be doing. So yeah, now without any further ado, let's get into the tutorial. Yeah, so this is the Serverpod's main website. You can just skim through this if you want and see what all are their pictures. So documentation is our sword. We'll go and see. So first of all, installing Serverpod. So we have to install Serverpod. So installing server, before installing, two prerequisites are Flutter and Dart. I hope everyone will be having Flutter and Dart because that's the basics. No? So make sure you are having Flutter version at least 3.7 and above. Okay, and Docker. If you don't have Docker in your machine, you can just install it easily. Just go to Docker, and you will have Docker docs, and just Docker desktop. Just go here somewhere, and yeah, Docker desktop. So install Docker desktop. So here you can see install on Mac, install on Windows, install on Linux. You can just go there and download anything download whatever suits your machine, and that's it. Just download it and it will be, see, I already have downloaded Docker Desktop, I have it here. So you can just download it and yeah, it will be installed. That's it what you have to do for installing Docker engine into your machine. So hoping all those are in place. You can first command that you have to run it to get the server pod in your active in your machine is this docker dart pub global activate server pod CLI. So command we am running exactly the same. So for me, I have already installed it, right? So I have already have a currently active version of 1.2.6. So let's just wait for this to complete. Yeah, so after it is completing, you can just make sure whether it is installed by just running Serverpod. We will see a bunch of outputs, all the stuff. If you want to see, Serverpod version, you will see the Serverpod 1.2.6 is installed in our machine. So yeah, that's it. So we have successfully activated Serverpod in our machine. Now let's create one Serverpod project. So for that, I will be going into Slum users. I have programming. Select whichever uh, folder you want. So I will be going via terminal actually. CD programming. CD. I will be going to the Serverpod folder, and the command that you should run in order to create a Serverpod product is Serverpod create which app we will be building. We will be creating a to-do app, right? So Serverpod create to-do app. This is it. So just click enter or return. So it will run a bunch of scripts under the hood and it will create. If you want to get the command, you can just get started, go to get started session, and here it is, Serverpod create my pod. We just replace my pod with a to-do app. That's it. It is building the app. Let's wait. Yes, it has successfully built. So Serverpod project created. So let me see, we have now a to-do app in our project. So I will go to CD to-do app and I will be opening this in the Visual Studio Code. Yeah, so this is how our initial Serverpod project will look like. Okay, so as you can see, there are three top level folders. There is one server folder, Flutter folder, and a client folder. I hope the name itself is self-explanatory. Okay, so in to do server folder is where we write our server code, and as name suggests, this is where we write our Flutter code. What is this client? This client is which connects our Flutter with the server. So whenever we create a server code, we write some server code, we run a command called serverpod generate, and it will generate these subsequent methods in the client, and this client method is what we call in our Flutter app. So it is client is mostly like a bridge between our Flutter and our Dart server. So that's it. In most of the cases, we don't have to even look at the client. It is actually auto generated, and we should not modify any of the codes in this coming in this client lib directory. So these all are auto-generated codes. So most of the cases we need not have to worry about it. So what we will be looking closely will be this server and Flutter code. First, let's look at the server part. So when we open, there are a bunch of files, right? So mostly we don't have to worry about most of these. The first thing that we should look into is in lib src. There are two folders, right? Endpoints and models. So these endpoints is where we write our endpoints. So as you can see, there is a example endpoint and a hello method. We will look into these, what are these, and there is other folder called models. So this is where we define our database schemas and our class schemas. We will look into this as well soon. And the other things are, these are the more important things, and other things are in config. You can see a bunch of YAML files, right? So there is development.yaml, production.yaml, staging.yaml, so passwords.yaml. So these all are different environments. When we go to passwords.yaml, this is where we store all our passwords. So we are using database. This is one Postgres password that we are adding here, and inside the app we will access our password via here. Okay, right. So when we go to development, these all are a bunch of configurations, like our database configurations, Redis configuration. So that's it. This, as the name suggests, in config we manage all our configuration files. Yeah, these all are the first things that we should be aware of in our initial stage, but we will look into how to work in this soon. And first of all, let's get our server up and running. Let's see how our server runs. So in order for that, open your terminal and cd go to our to do server folder in our command line. And as you can see, they have dockerized, Serverpod has dockerized a Postgres and a Redis, for a Postgres database and a Redis for us. So you can see there is already a Docker image that has been constructed. So if you are not, not very comfortable with this, don't worry. These all are something that Serverpod gives us from zero, just to make our development easier. So first we will see how to run our database in a Dockerized environment. Then if you are not comfortable with Docker, I will show you another way how to make our database up and running without Docker. Don't worry. So first let's start with Docker. So in order to start this, first we have to start our Docker engine. So I hope everyone may have downloaded Docker from the uh, from here, Docker install Windows. And if the Docker engine is up, starting Docker engine, yeah, this is enough. Now Docker engine is running, and let's run our, before running I am just changing this 4.1 to latest. Not necessarily, if you are running Docker for the first time, let it be 14.5. Not an issue. I already have Postgres latest image in my machine, so that's it. I don't want to pull a new image unnecessarily. That's it, just my preference. If you don't want to do it, skip it. So first thing that you have to do is docker compose up build -d. Okay, run this command. What this command will do is, this will uh, make a two Docker containers, a Postgres and a Redis container. It will activate these two containers in our machine. See, it has activated two Docker containers. It has started a volume as well. Okay, this is it. Now we have two Docker containers running in our machine. If you want to see, you can do Docker PS. You can see two containers are running. Container ID with this, that is a Redis container. Container ID with this, that is a Postgres latest container. If you don't understand this, don't worry, just skip it. Now, in order to run our server, the command that we should run is dart bin slash main dot dart. Okay, what is this bin slash main dot dart? If you go in server, there is bin slash main dot dart. This is the entry point of our server. As you can see in our Flutter app also, we have one main dot dart file, right? It has a run app function. So similarly, for running our Flutter server, this is the main function. So it will be in bin slash main dot dart. So we have to do one more flag. Just running this won't work. One more flag we have to do, that is apply apply migrations. What is apply migrations? That's a new thing, right? So apply when you see in migrations folder, there are a bunch of SQL. If you go this migration.sql, you can see a bunch of SQL commands like create table. So these all are actually self-generated SQL commands that Serverpod needs in order to make its server up and running. So in our database, we have created one database, a Postgres database. In our database, we have to apply these migrations. Okay. So if you go to our Docker file, just follow along with me for now. So if you do Docker PS, we have a Postgres database running, right? So if you go inside the container, the command for it is docker exec it command v, the container id bin slash bash. Don't worry, if you don't understand it, don't worry, I will show you another way. If you are good with Docker, just follow along, else just leave it. I am just going to show you what will happen. Okay, so this is docker exec it. I am going inside the Docker container, and if you do psql database, what is database now? App user Postgres. So now you are inside our database. If you /dt, what this /dt will do is it will show all our tables that are present in our database. Currently we are working with a fresh database, so we don't have any tables. So that is why it is showing did not find any relations. But see what will happen if I am running this command, right? Dart bin slash main dot apply migrations, and I am running it. It will be starting our database, and see, it has said it applied all the migrations. Okay, so these migration it has applied in it. So when we go into our database, we again do /dt, it will list all our tables. So if we do /dt and enter, see, now we can see a bunch of tables has been created in our database. Serverpod, auth key, session logs. If you go into our migration.sql, you can see create table serverpod auth key. It has this command. So this migration it has specifically executed in our database, and these database tables has been created. So this is what Serverpod do initially, just to make it up and running. So if you want to make sure whether our database is running, server is running correctly, we can see server default is listening to port 8080. So to port 8080 is where our server listening. So when you go here, we do local host colon 8080. See, if you see this OK command, that means our server is perfect. Server is up and running perfectly. Okay, that is how we run our server with Docker. It is that easy. Just a few commands, Docker compose build, and two commands. It is server is up and running. But if you don't want to do it in the Docker way, see, if I the few commands I showed you before, if you are not comfortable with it, I have another way for you. It is we don't have to use Docker here. I will show you exactly the same how to do this. Let me close this container, close this server first, and let me quit from here. Okay, and I will close this container as well. So Docker compose up helps us to build the container. So how will we close the container? Docker compose down. Okay, one more flag we are adding volume just to put down our volume. It's another jargon. So okay, so now we don't, if you don't want to use Docker, you are not comfortable with it, one thing that we can do is we will be going to a hosted database. We will be taking our own hosted DB, a Postgres database. So one, let's go to A1. This is a provider for database. Okay, A1 is a provider. There is another one called neon.tech. So you can go to A1 and you can log in. I already have an account, so you can just go and log in there. See, after logging in, you will have a different window. I already have a PG Postgres database, right? So you can create this. It is straightforward, just few button clicks and you will be here. So just open your database. So this is a Postgres database that A1 provides. It is not in my Docker. It is provided in some else way. So we will be connecting this database to our this Serverpod database. We will be replacing our Docker database with this self-hosted database. So as you can see, in development.yaml file, there is a section called database. So this is the configuration of our database, right? So we can replace this configuration with our A1 database configuration. The first one, host. This is the host. Just copy it, come here and see host. We are having local host here, so we will be replace it with the A1 provided host. There is database name. So come to the DB namespace and give our database. Then port. This is the port. And then we set the port. User. This is the user A1 admin. Yeah. Done. Then other thing is password. We have a password, so we will copy the password, come here, and I will replace my in our development. There is this database section. This is where from our database password comes from. So I replaced it. Is this enough? What happens if we run our dart bin main./apply migrations? Will it work? No, it won't work. Why? Because one more flag we have to add here, SSL mode require. So it has been specified that it has a SSL mode required. So here if we are running it like this, it will be like SSL mode will be not required. It will be in a false state. You can actually run and see for yourself whether it will work or not. It will not create a connection with our database, even though it is all our data are all our informations are same, it will not connect. So one more, this is one more flag that we need to add, and we have to make it true. Okay, now let's try connecting to our database with as you can see, right now I don't have a Docker. Okay, I'm connecting directly to the production database. So Docker apply migrations. Oh shoot, what happened? Okay, sorry, I didn't save it. Control S, Control C, again run it. Cool, it worked. Failed to apply my database migration. Just forget this. For you, this won't be happening because uh, I already have applied these migrations in my this database. That's why it is giving me errors. For you, this issue won't come. I believe you will be having a perfect uh, database stuff. So, and if you run localhost 8080, you will still see it is up. It has changed. So your database is still up. So this is how you can connect a non-dockerized database into your project, and you can do your database setup. So if you are not comfortable with Docker, you can continue like this. Also, now comes another question: how will I visualize my data? So if I was doing Docker, or if I was using my local database, I could have visualized my data like this. See, I used PSQL, and I could have seen all the tables. Now how will I see my database data, whether what all data has been uh, what all data has been created in my A1 database. In that, for that case, either there are a couple of ways. One way I will show you is to have a PgAdmin or any other GUI. Okay, sorry. So there are a couple of GUIs that are available to visualize your Postgres data. One thing I will show you is PgAdmin. So this is the thing. Go to PgAdmin downloads container macOS. You can download your PgAdmin from depending on your platform. For macOS users, Windows users come here, macOS users come here, and you can download your depending on your version. So PgAdmin, the latest version, you can download from here. I'm using Intel, so you can, if you are using depending on your core, you can download your thing, right? So I already have it downloaded. So if you, after downloading, you can come here and you can see in your downloads applications. See, I already have PgAdmin downloaded, so you can install it. Double click. Yes, I agree. PgAdmin. Let it copy. Yeah, guys, it is installed. I will be closing this and PgAdmin 4. So if we open it, define PgAdmin. Yeah. Let's of course open. It's opening. Yeah, this is what it is. So I already have connected it. I will show you another way to delete this. Remove server. So this will be the initial screen that will be seen. We will be seeing some bunch of stuff here. Right, let it be. So how to add our PgAdmin, this A1 database into our PgAdmin so that we can visualize our data. First thing you can do is, you have to do is right click. There will be a register section and register a server. Okay. give it a name, anything you like. To do server pod, I will do. Then come to connections. This is where we add our connections. So as you can see, there is a host name or address. Come here, copy the host name, paste it here. Port. What is port? Port is this one. Copy, paste. Maintenance DB. What is our database name? Default DB. Come here, copy, paste. Username. Password. This is the password. Copy. V. Yeah. So by this we have added all our required things. Then put save. To do server thing has been created. If you see, when you go to the database session, there is you won't be seeing these much anyway. So there will be one database called default DB. So when you go inside, you can see in schemas in public there will be a section called tables. See, so initially you will be having 0 tables. So I have already created the Serverpod database. That is why I am seeing these tables. Okay, so you will be, if it is your initial thing, you will be having 0 tables, and once you run this command, right, apply migrations on your hosted database, that is when where you see these tables applied into your database. So you won't be seeing to-dos table now. It will be our we will see that after we add some to-do things. I have already created and tested how to do this, so that's why I am seeing these much tables. So if you want to view your things, then you can go to do and right click and view edit data and all rows. If you do that, you can see all the tables just like how we saw it in here. So we saw our tables. If you want to go inside a table, there is another command for that here. So we will be seeing it in our command line. So likewise we can see it in a good GUI way, graphical way. So that's totally different. We can query, we can see our database. If you are good with SQL, you can communicate with your database, all those stuff. Also remember, just do, if you have done some query operations and if you are not seeing it immediately here, just do a refresh. It will refresh your database and fetch your data. That's it. So this is another thing that you can visualize. That's it. I just wanted to show you this. I will not be working with this. We will be mostly going the Docker part. So that is the fun thing, right? We can learn a little bit of Docker also. We can see how we can integrate. I will be doing this CLI way of communication with the database. So we will see how we can achieve this. And also, if you are not so much good at Docker but you want to learn Docker, I will recommend this course by Harkirat. So this is a 1 hour long boot camp. It is an amazing course. It is actually beginner friendly, and you will understand Docker mostly what all, most common stuff, what all you need to know. He will be teaching you in this boot camp. So if you watch that and if you come back, you will have a good idea on these commands. You will understand this is not a big stuff. This is just straightforward, some small Docker commands. Okay, anyway, I will also be showing some of these commands in this tutorial. If you are not comfortable, just go there, learn it, come back. You will be good to go. Else you can just follow along for now. Else you can use that PgAdmin and do the database queries. Yeah, so much database. That's it for now. For regarding database, now let's go back to our server code, and I will be changing these back to my default things. I am not using our hosted database. I will be doing localhost 5432 default DB. That's my database name. Web servers Postgres. Password. Yes. Control C. Okay, so I will be doing my Docker Compose up build. I will be Docker container is up. Then I will run dart bin/main.dart apply migrations. We'll start the didn't start. What happened? Connection refused. Number of this what is that? Oh, sorry. The port is different here. 8890. This is the port I need to give here. Control V, Control S. Okay. Now run it. Yeah, so our database is up and our server is up. Now let's run our Flutter app and see how our default Flutter app looks. So it is not much, right? It is just our normal Flutter part cd to do Flutter run d Chrome. I will be running on Chrome for now. Let's see how the Flutter app looks. The default server port Flutter app. It's taking some time. Let it build. So this is our default Flutter app that Serverpod gives us. If you enter your name Aslam, send it to server. This Aslam will go into the server, then come back as a response. So right now there is no server response. When I click yes, it will go to the server and come back as this hello Aslam. So if you go to the example endpoint, you can see it is just a link a simple hello method, and it is returning hello, what is the name, all those stuff. We'll see how they have returned this, how we can create our own endpoints and all. Fine. Okay, so now to create our own to do endpoints, first thing that we should do is create our to do models. So when you come to here, you can see one example.spy.yaml file. So you can see this is one example model that they have created. So we won't be using this. We create another model, a new file called to do.yaml file. Hope everyone knows YAML. We all are Flutter guys. We know we have used pubspec.yaml for quite a while. So .yaml file will have to be straightforward, right? So what all are the fields that a to do should have? For that we have a fields key and two indentations. Indentation is very much important in YAML. So two indentations. So fields, what will be the first field we need? We need a title field. What will be its type? String. And the second field we need is description field. and its type is also string, and optionally we can have one more field is completed field. Okay, and its type will be bool, so boolean type, true or false. Okay, these are the three fields that we need in order to create a to do. Is this enough? No, we, for this field to be created in our database, we have to specify one, we have to specify the table name. So as you can see, when come here, it is commented out actually. So here, table example. So if we see, if you say table to do's, if you specify this, then this to do's table will be created inside your database. Which one? The Postgres database. This is how you create a to-dos table in your Postgres database. Let's see it in action. I am saving this, and as you can see, we are running it via Docker, right? So sorry, we make this a little bigger, and if you see, I will clear everything first. If you do Docker PS, what is Docker PS? It gives us the list of containers that we are currently running in our system. So we can see there is a Postgres latest container that we are running, that we ran from our uh, project. So its container ID is this. Control, I am copying this, and I want to go inside this Postgres container. Okay, so in order to, I want to do some commands, I want to view my database, and that database is uh, in this Postgres container, right? Postgres latest image, and this is the container ID. So I want to go inside. Also, if you are not understanding these concepts, as I told you, just go to that Harkirat's course and learn a bit about Docker, and this is actually easy, bro. It is not that tough, it is very easy. So just I am going to execute one command in order to go inside the Docker container. So the command is docker exec it, like execute interactively, something, that flag it, and then I am pasting the container ID into which I want to go, and the other command is bin slash bash. What bin dash slash will do is it will open a terminal inside the container. So if I click enter, I see I am right now inside root 98, this same ID, right? So I am right now inside the container. Okay, so now what I want to do is I want to go inside my database. So Postgres has this CLI tool called PSQL. Okay, so what PSQL does is it helps us to query into our database, just like what PgAdmin enabled us to do. So we were using PgAdmin, we were able to see our A1, our hosted database, right? Likewise, this is just a CLI tool. It helps us to control and view our database via command line. That's it. So PSQL, and our database name is, what is our database name? Our database name was, what was our database name? Development. To do app. Our database name was to do app, and the user was Postgres. So if you click, if I do this, I will be right now inside my to do app database. So if I do slash /dt, right now I can see these much tables. Why? Because I ran this command, right? So I ran this command, I ran bin slash apply migration. So it applied all the migrations. That migrations means a bunch of SQL commands that has to be run. So if we go to migration, so these bunch of SQL commands it ran, and it created this table cloud storage table. If you come here, you can see exactly the same auth key, cloud storage, all those stuff. So right now we want to create, these all are default tables that Serverpod creates for it to work. So now we want to create our own table, that is the to-dos table. How will we create this? So in order to do a create a to-dos table, we have to create a migration for this to-dos table. So this is actually just the YAML code. How we want for in order to create something, query something in your Postgres, it is a SQL database. We need to create some SQL queries, right? That is what this migration does. So we want to convert this into our SQL, into some SQL commands. So for that, there is one command that we have to run. So we again go to cd server. The command to create migration is serverpod create migration. So if you do serverpod create migration, enter some issue. What is the issue? Oh, okay, guys. So we have to define a give a class name as well, class to do. So basically, as we can see here is a class name example. So we have to give a class name. What is this class name? We will look into this. This is what Flutter uses to interact with this model. This table is how we identify it in our database. This to do class is what Flutter uses to interact. So we'll look into it. So in order to generate this table, first we should run serverpod create migration. See, creating migration, migrated, it created a migration with ID this one, same thing, 437. So if you open this migration.sql, you can see it created an SQL command with for creating to do tables, like create table, to do, the ID, all those stuff. So as you can see, ID is something it will create automatically. So we have never specified an ID here, but Serverpod creates this ID automatically for us. So then it will be doing some other bunch of SQL commands. So now we have created our migration. Now we have to apply our migration. How will we apply our migration? As you can see, we have did this command, right? Same command we have to run here in order to apply our migration into our database. Dart bin slash main dot apply migrations. But now I will introduce you to one more command, that is role. This is a flag role, and I am giving it maintenance. What does this do? So basically, when you see here, it started the server and it is always listening, right? It is always up and down, up. So if you just want to apply your migration and turn down the server, you don't have to keep the server up. We just want to apply this to do migration and let the server turn down. If that's the case, that's where you should do role maintenance. Okay, now if I apply this command, applied migration for 437, they have applied the 437 migration, that is our to do app. If you want to see it, you go to our terminal. Now these were our previous tables. Now if we do /dt again, see, a to do table has also been added to our database. This is how we create migrations and we create tables in our SQL, not SQL, in our server using Serverpod. Okay, so right now we have done this much. So now the table has been created. Now how to connect it with our Flutter app. That's before that, let's create some endpoints. Okay, so we have to create some endpoints so that our Flutter app can communicate with our server. So how to create endpoints? The next step is to create endpoints. So we have created the model. Now to create endpoints, we'll create another file, new file. The name will be to do endpoint dot. Okay, so the this endpoint will be a class to do. It extends a class called endpoint. This is it. So by now we have created an endpoint to do. So it will be having, we are doing a CRUD operation. So it will be having four methods: create to do, get all to do's. We want to see all of our to do's. Then update to do. Then last one, delete to do. Yeah, so these are the four endpoints. Is this enough? No, all of our endpoints should have one common parameter, that is session. This is a common parameter that every endpoint method should have. What is its use? We'll see soon. It is basically to get the session, get our data, whether we are logged in or not, all those stuff, to get the session of our server. So this is what we need. And now as you can see, everything is actually a future. It has yeah. Now we will make it a future because it is actually a future function, right? Like it has to, what this has to do, it has to go to the database, update our things in the database, then fetch the response, then give it to Flutter. So it is actually asynchronous function. So we add future. It is a future function. Everything is a future function, and if it is a future, we have to give a sync keyword. Now we need to get, in order to create to do, we need a to do, right? From where this to do comes from? This to do comes from the Flutter pod. So Flutter has these input fields and the user inputs, and we create a to do and we pass that to do to the server. So the server has to get the to do from the Flutter. So how will we get the to do? We need to have a to do object like this, but we have defined the class, but we are at this moment it is not accessible. Why? Because in order, even though this is defined, we have not generated. If you remember, we have only generated it in our database. We have to generate this YAML file and a to do class in our project as well. Project means in our client. So in order to generate it, we have to give another command called serverpod generate. Okay, this command will generate our class. Done. So it generated our class, and if you come here now, now our to do class has to be of name whatever our tag is and endpoint. As you can see, the example, it is example endpoint. Likewise, to do if we are creating an endpoint, the class name should be to do endpoint extends endpoint. Okay, then we generated our to do class, then we can use that to do class here, to do from protocol.to do. See, now we got access to our to do object. Similarly, in order to get all to dos, we actually don't need to dos, right? So we'll get all our to dos, and then in order to update all our to do, we need our new to do. In order to delete a to do also, we need our to do, which to do has to be deleted. So is this complete? No. Most of the future, it should have a return type. What is the return type? In order to, if we create a to do, we will return the created to do. If it is a get all to do, we need to return a list of to do, isn't it? We will be returning list of to dos, all to dos. Then if we updated to do, then we will be returning a updated to do. If it is a delete to do, we will not be returning a to do because we have already deleted that to do. So we can give either a string which will be the ID of the to do that has been deleted, or we can just return bool like true or false, whether it to do has been deleted successfully or not, whatever. So in order to create a to do, what we have to do is to do dot db. What does this db do? What does this is used to interact with our db, and there will be a insert row. This is how we insert something into our to do. What we need to insert, we need to insert our to do. So this is it. This is what we need to do in order to insert a to do into our database. So this is actually a future function, so we have to wait for it, and what it returns is a to do. This to do will be the created to do. So we can final new to do is equal to, we can await for it, then we can return new to do. So what we have done, so we have to do dot db dot insert row creates a to do in our database, and it returns the created to do. What does this created to do will have? It will have an id property, right? While we are defining to do, we are not giving any id. We are just creating a title, description is completed or not, and then we are passing it to our database, and this database will create our to do in our this command will create a to do in our database, and it will give it a id field, and it will return the new created to do, and we can return it to our front end. Similarly, in order to get all to dos, what is the command we should use? So await, we have to do dot db. To do dot db is the command that we should use in order to interact with our database. So to do dot db does find gives, as we can see, the return type is future a list of to dos. Which all to dos are we are having? It will find all our to do entries, and it will give our to do. So final all to do's is equal to this will go to our database, query for our to do's, and return all our to do's. So we can just return all to do's. This is it. As you can see, this is that easy. With just 2 lines of code, we are actually directly interacting with our database, inserting, finding, deleting. And if you wonder from where I am getting these things, you can, it is all in the documentation. We can just go, we can just database CRUD. So it has everything explained: inserting a single row, inserting several rows, how to read, how to find, how to, all those things, how to delete, how to count. Some advanced queries will also be there, how to do paginations, all those stuff. So everything is actually coming from the documentation. So if you can you now write the remaining, how to update a to do and how to delete a to do? If you can, just pause the video and do it. It is great. Else just follow along. So in order to update a to do, what we should do, await to do dot db dot update. What we have to update, we have to update a single row, and we'll give the to do that needs to be updated. But there is a catch. How will we update? The idea is, if the to do that we are going to update must have a ID. I'll show you update. See, update a single row. Update row, the object that you update must have ID, set it to not null. Okay, so that check we have to do initially. If the to do we are passing doesn't have an ID, then it should not update. If to do dot ID is equal to null, to do dot ID null, if it is null, then throw an exception. Throw exception, no ID found. If there is an ID, then it will update to do final updated to do is equal to await updated to do, then we can return it, updated to do. Similarly, for deleting to do, final, let's see, await to do dot db dot delete. What you want to, we have to delete one row, delete row session. We have to do. This is how we delete a single row, and it will actually return an integer. What is integer? It is the ID of the deleted to do. Final to do ID is equal to, and this must also have a ID. If there is no ID, then it will not delete. Exception, and return to do ID, and it has to be integer. Yeah, voila. This is it. So right now we have created our 4 required to do endpoints, which will insert a to do, find all the to dos, update a row, update a to do, and delete a to do. This is it. So now how will we generate this, so that we can access it in our Flutter? I told you this client is just writing some classes or methods in server. Server is not enough. In order for it to work, we have to generate this in our client, right? So from client is where the Flutter interact with server. So as you can see right now in client libs src, there is example dot dot, there is to do dot dot. Let's see, let's generate Serverpod generate. It have generated new code. If you go to do dot dot, no, sorry, client dot dot. Client dot dot is where all our endpoints will be there. So we can see endpoint example. This was already been there. Now we have added an endpoint to do. So this endpoint to do has create to do method, get all to do method, update to do method, delete to do method. From where did this come? This came from the endpoint that we just now wrote. So when we did the serverpod generate function, it generated the corresponding to do client in our Flutter client folder. So this is all in for our to do backend. Now we will go into the front end part and do some Flutter code so that we can connect our Flutter front end with our to do backend. So now let's close this server side and let's go to the Flutter side. As you can see, I have already ran the app in my iOS emulator, so you can also run it. It's just normal way how you run your Flutter code, right? Nothing much complicated. So only thing, some thing you have to keep in mind is you can see this client variable, isn't it? So this client variable is a singleton variable. This is using this client variable is how we connect it to our server. So I have told before, we do the server code, then we do serverpod generate, and then we add then some codes will be generated in the client, and from client is how the Flutter will access our endpoints. So in order for that to happen, this is what we should do. Client, this is the code which initializes our client, and you can see there is a local host, HTTP localhost 8080 that we are saying. So if we are doing in running in our Chrome or iOS, this localhost is fine. Localhost, this works just fine, no problem. But if you are using Android emulator, if you are using in Windows, or mostly you will be using Android emulator, or in iOS or Mac also, if you are using Android emulator, you should change this localhost into something, this one, 10.0.2.2. so special alias for your host look back. So 10.0.2.2, you have to replace this localhost with Android 10.0.2.2. So that is the IP host IP by which our emulator is connected to our host. But in case you are using your own real device, so both these point will not work. If you are using your own real device, then you have to connect with your IP address, your computer's IP address. How to get your computer's IP address? You run the, if you are in Windows, you run IP config. Okay, you run this command IP config. If you are in Windows, you will get a output, and it will be having a section called IPv4 output, and from there you will get your IP. Else, if you are in Mac, you run if config, and you will get a output like this. And if you scroll above in en0 this tag, you can see inet. Yeah, inet. So you can see 192.168.0.105. This is my Mac's IP address. So likewise, you will be having your own machine's IP address, and replace that IP address with the localhost. Then it will work fine in your real device also. Remember, in Windows you will get IPv4. There will be a tag called IPv4, and you will be getting your own IP address. Add that. So that is one thing that you have to keep in mind. Okay, fine. I hope everything works fine for the Flutter app runs well. If that runs well, this should work. Hello Aslam, this is going to the server, and it is Asia. It is not, I didn't mean Asian, guys. I mean Aslam. Okay, fine. So yeah, it will work just fine like that. Now also, uh, remember, okay, this is important, remember to restart your server. Okay, so control, oh my god, my system is lagging so much. So remember to restart your server as well. Our server is up, as you can see, it is running on port 8080. So now let's start writing some code on our Flutter side. Let's tweak our UI a little bit, and then we will connect our endpoints, to do endpoint into our Flutter app. So first of all, I will be deleting all this stuff. These all are some default code that Serverpod gives us. I'm deleting it, and stateless, creating one dummy home page. Command C. Okay, one home page, and let's replace this placeholder with a scaffold. Let's give an add bar, title is text, my to-dos, let it be a center title, then body, as body we can give a column with children. Let the children be a list tile. Okay, title will be text. To do one, we'll have a trailing icon button. Icon will be icons dot delete, because we'll use this icon button to delete our to do. We'll have an on pressed field. We'll come into it later, and when we save this, yeah, this is what we will see. We'll make this dynamic, but for now let it be. And next thing is, we want the field to add create to do, so we will add a floating action button. It has an on pressed parameter, and it has a child. I can give icons dot add, and there will be a floating action button. So when we click the floating action button, let's make it like a dialog comes where we can add a title to the to do and a description to the to do. So show dialog, and will be builder will have a context, then it will return a alert dialog. Okay, fine. Alert dialog will have a title. Title, let's give it a text form field. So this is where we enter our title. Then as content, we give another text form field, and let it will have a max lines of 5 and a min lines of 5. And so if we see, it will be like this. No, it's not good. So we can add some decorations. Decoration, input decoration will have one enabled border, outline input border. This is the border what we will use. So actually let's add this border on top of our theme data, because both our text form field will be using the same border. So this we will add it here, input decoration theme, command V, enabled border, outline input border. So the other borders will be focused border, then we will have an error border, focused error border. Yeah, so this much border we will add. Then now we can remove this and we can have a label text. This will be title, and in this decoration, input decoration, label text will be description. So now if we look, yeah, looks much better. And we'll have two buttons, one cancel button and one save button. Save button to create to do, cancel button to create cancel the creation. So now in alert there is actions. So the first action will be a text button. Okay, text button, it will have child text, can it will be cancel. Then the other one is one elevated button and on pressed child will be a text with save text. Yeah, so if we again look at it, yeah, this is how it will be. Fine. Okay, so in order to get the values that the user inputted in the form fields, we will use a text form field, a text editing controller. So we need text editing controller. Text first is title controller is equal to text editing controller. The other is description ctrl is equal to text editing controller. Okay, now the title text form will have a title controller. The content description text form will have a description controller. Fine. So right now our basic setup has been done. Now let's on cancel button, let's pop the dialog navigator dot of context dot pop. Okay, so on press cancel it pops. Okay, now we have to enter some title, enter some description, and on save a creation should take place. Creation of the to-do should take place. Okay, so how we do this in save on elevator button? We will have a new to-do object, final new to-do is equal to do. Yeah, from where is this to do coming from? We have seen in our server we have already given one, in our server we already defined one model, right, in to do model. So it has a class parameter. When we did to do serverpod generate, it has generated the corresponding class in our client. You see to do dot it has generated an corresponding class here, and from here is what we are getting this to do object. So the title is text, title controller dot text, description is description controller dot text. Is complete? No, it is still creation, it is not complete. Okay. So we have created one to do. Now how will we set it to the server. How will we give this to do to the server? The answer is client. This is where this client object comes into play. So this client object helps us to create a connection with the server. So as you can see, we can do client dot, which is our endpoint, to do is the endpoint, to do dot, what was our method to create a to do? It was create to do, and it needed a new to do object. It was the new to do. That's it, we have successfully created one to do. So when we see, it is a future which is returning a to do, so we can await, so we can make this function async. We will wait for it, and that's it. Now we have successfully done a logic to create a to do. Let's see whether this works. So right now when we query our database, select everything from to dos. See, this is see, right now there is no entry. This is simple SQL command to select all the entries of the to dos table. Right now, as you can see, there are no entries in our to dos table. So now we are going to add entries using the create to do method to the to dos table. Let's see whether that will work or not. Now title is new title description. When I click save, method call is gone to create to do. Now let's see in our database. If you select, see, we have created a new to do description. So you are seeing ideas 5 because I have tried this a bunch of time before and I forgot to record. So yeah, that's it. Anyway, so title description, it was added to our database. So this method call was success. Now we have to do a bunch of things. So if you see right now, the to do is hard coded. It's to do hard is hard coded. So we have to change this in order to get the to dos from the server. So in order to do that, first of all, I will make this home page a stateful widget. Then I will create a variable called list of to do. It can be nullable, and I will call it to dos. Okay, I will have an init state, and I will also define a method called load to dos. Okay, and this load to dos will be a sing function, and the primary function of it will be to call the to dos. So how will we get all the to dos? In client, we use client variable, and we'll use call our data endpoint, and from endpoint we have an endpoint called get all to dos. Right, so it is actually a feature which gives a list of to dos. So we can actually write final all to dos is equal to await for the to do, and it will get all the list of to dos. Then let's do a set state all to dos is equal to the to dos variable is global to dos variable is equal to all to dos. Yeah, this is enough. So now we have to call this load to dos in our init state. So if I call load to dos command s, now if we do a hot restart, control shift hot restarting, control shift F5. Oh, sorry, we didn't set it here. We have to set it here. It may have fetched and set it in the to do, so we didn't set it here. So what we can do is we can list tile. We have to remove this list tile, and we have to take if to dos dot map, we are having command B, all the list style we will do to list. Okay, and this has to be not nullable. To-dos will not be null. So initially we have to do a check where we'll first command dot, we'll wrap we'll oh, okay, it's fine. So if the to-dos is equal to null, we will say first show a circular progress indicator, sender child circular progress indicator. Okay, this will be shown if the to-dos is null, because it means it is fetching from the server, right? So, or else if it is not null, if there are to-dos, then show this list tile, and the title will be we can make this to do. Title will be to do dot title. If I save, you can see it is saved to new title. So new title is something that is coming from the database. So we are successfully fetching from our database. So the next thing we have to do is, after creating a to do, we have to load the to dos, then we have to pop the dialog navigator dot of context dot array pop. Fine. So now if you see, I am adding another title, another to do, and a simple description. If I click save, see it is actually added to our to dos, and if you query the database, it will be added in to our database as well. Another to do, simple description. That's it. So now we have got a fairly simple idea on how to integrate our backend with our front end. Now the next step is to delete a to do. So you can see there is an icon button with delete. When you click here, we have to delete the to do. So this is, you can take it as a simple challenge. If you can do it, just pause the video and try to implement it by yourself, how to delete a to do. And another thing is how to update a to do. If you can do that, what I will be doing next is, when you click this on list tile, we can have an on tap handler. Okay, we have an on tap handler. Now when we click this list tile, this same uh, pop-up should come, but it has to be populated, and when we click save, it will update rather than creating. So I will be doing exactly the same. If you can, just try it by yourself. So okay, now going to the deletion part, I'll make this async, and we have to call the client dot to do endpoint dot method. What will be the method? The method will be delete to do, and it will be taking the to do. It is that to do. This to do is coming from this map, right? So first of all, we have to await for it to happen. Then after that, we have to load to dos. I do control S, then new title I am deleting. If I click delete, it is deleted. See how easy. Now we can see there is no another to do. So that's it. Now the other thing is how to update it to do. This is also fairly simple, right? So we already have this dialog, we can reuse it. So first of all, what I will do is, I'll create another method here called here outside show to do pop up. Okay, and it will return our show dialog x we show dialog, yes. And optionally it will have a parameter. So the idea is we can now reuse this show dialog. It will have a parameter called to do. So this is a nullable parameter. If there is a to do, then you should update. If there is not to do, then you should create. That's the whole idea. So we can also make it optional. Okay. And so on trust is where the actual logic comes. So we are saying if to do is not equal to null, we are having a to do as a parameter, then update else create. So I will be taking this much code which is used to create and will be pasting it here. And now inside here we will have our update to do logic. So final updated to do is equal to whatever to do we are getting, to do dot copy with, we are updating, right? So we will use copy with, and we will be updating title and description. So title will be title controller dot text, description will be description controller dot text. Fine. Then after that we will update, and we will call the client and call the to do endpoint, and we will call the update to do, and we will be passing the updated to do as parameter. This is it. Now we have created a both update to do and create to do endpoints. One more thing we have to do is, if there is a to do, then this text editing controller should be pre-populated, right? So we can have a text field, and if to do is not equal to null, means it has to be pre-populated with the to do dot title, else let it be empty. Similarly, for description, if to do is not equal to null, let it be populated with the to do description. Now if you see, go here, when you click, oh so sorry, we have to call. So in floating action vector we have to call show to do pop-up without any parameter. Without any parameter means to do is null, so nothing will be called, it will go to the creation field. But on tap of the list tile, if you call show to do pop-up with a to do parameter, which is the same to do where we are tapping on, so it will pre-populate. And if we click save, so I am another to do new I am creating. If I click save, it will update the already created to do. You go here, you can see another to do new, you can see. If you delete this, nothing will be shown. So we can do one more logic. If to do is empty, we have to show a text showing create to do. It is bad to show the user nothing on the screen, right? So what we can do is, if we are checking whether to do is null, else to do is not null. Now you can see if to do dot is empty. If to do is empty, to do won't be null in this case. Then we can have a sender child text create, you create a to do, and just create a to do. Create your to do's, and let's view extend body behind that dot to true, so let it be, will come a bit up. Yeah, so this is it. If there are no to do's, you will see create your to do part. If there are any to do's, I am adding title, new, having description, some description, and I'm saving. And we couldn't see to-dos for some time, so I was debugging that. So the issue was we added this extend body behind back bar, right? So it was the one giving issue. Let me click now. So the to-dos was actually going behind the back bar, so we was not able to see that. I will remove that one for now. And if we create a new to-do, description, save, it will be added, deleted. No to do means create your to dos. Yeah, so that is how we connect our front end Flutter with the backend server. So it is that easy. And now what is remaining for us to do is to do description, to connect this to do with a particular user, that is authentication part. So we have went through the setuping the Serverpod, database connections. We saw different ways to connect to database, PgAdmin. Then we created this to-do app. We saw some Docker commands as well. Now we will be doing authentication using Serverpod. Serverpod is actually giving making it easier for us to do authentication if you are using Serverpod. So there are different authentication providers like as I already said, Google, Apple authentication, all these are possible. Also we can do email password authentication. So we will be mostly focusing on email password authentication, and we will also see how we can tie this to do particular to-dos with a particular user. That is how we can create relationships in database. So this is a to-do table. We have to create a relationship with a particular user. We can add another foreign key here, and we will see how we will create relationships and all. Yeah, that is the next part. So in order to do authentication, we need to do some more setup in our server. We'll go back to our server now. So let me close everything else. We'll close all tabs, and first thing we should do is let's go to our documentation. There will be some authentication part, then there will be setup. We'll follow this. This is what we should they're detailed everything that what we should be doing. So first thing what we should do is to add the auth module or the app server auth Serverpod auth server as a dependency in our server. Okay, so in our to-do server, go to the pubspec.yaml, and under our dependency add Serverpod auth server as a dependency, and make sure you are having the same version as your Serverpod. This has to be consistent. Serverpod, if it is Serverpod 1.6, this also has to be 1.2.6. Make sure it is like that. Then do your pubget. Commanders will hopefully do pubget. Yes. After doing pubget, go to config/generator.yaml file and add this config/generator.yaml file, and here we will add this. What does this do? So this will create, it is generator, right? So when we run Serverpod generate, it will generate an auth client in our to-do client, to-do app client part. It will generate an auth client, and it's with a nickname auth. This is how auth is how we will be calling this Serverpod auth module in our Flutter app. We can name whatever you want, auth key, my auth, anything, that doesn't matter. Now what you should do is Serverpod create migration. Okay, now This is what mostly you have to do in our server side. Now if you go to the terminal in our server, let's stop the server for now. Control C. Okay, now we have to apply migrations to our database. So right now if you see /dt, we are having 15 rows, right? So these all are the rows we are right now, we are tables we are right now we are having. Now next thing we have to do is we have to create our migration. Server code create migration. What this will do, this will create a, we have already seen that we will create a migration folder here, which will contain all our SQL code that we should create a migration authentication tables in our database. So when we execute this, see, a new migration is created. If you go into it, migration.sql, you can see server pod email auth, server pod email create request, failed sign in. So whatever methods that tables that the server pod are required in order to manage our authentication, it has created in this migration those SQL queries. Now what we should do it, we have to apply these migrations. So we can just copy paste the things. So dot run, this is the command as you have seen to apply migration to our database. We have seen role maintenance means it will apply migration, then the server will shut down. It will not stay on forever. That's the idea. So if you see, we applied our migration. Okay, database migration applied, which is the migration 8256, the last one, 8256. Now if we go to our database /dt, if you look at all the tables, now we have more tables, 22 rows. Okay, so as you can see, user info, user image, email auth, some more bunch of tables has been added to the to our database. So these tables will be used to track our authentication, all those stuff. Now then one more thing that we should do is we have to do server pod generate. So we have added one generator file, so it is missing here, I guess. That command is missing in the documentation, but we should run that also. Server pod generate, what it will do, it will generate these auth modules in our client folder so that our Flutter app can communicate with our server. Running generating code, so it has generated code. Okay, now there are certain errors. What are the errors? Let's see. So the error says auth client server port auth client package is not to be seen. Obviously we didn't add it, so how will it be? So we can go and we can copy this server port auth client. We then same 1.2.6, make sure we are having the same dependency, same version, and else it will get the pubget, do the pubget. Hopefully the error will be gone after that. Oh my god, internet is gone. 1 minute guys, I think my internet is down. What happened? Okay, it's back. Let's do it again. Yeah, it's done. So the error is gone. Now we have server pod auth client. this is it what we have to do in our client side. Now let's go to the Flutter side. Server side and client side is done. Now let's go to Flutter side pubspec.yaml. We have to add auth serverpod auth shared Flutter. See, this is the a common dependency that we have to add in our Flutter project as a dependency. So as you can see, command V, and the version is 1.2.6. Also, one more dependency we will add, that is of the provider. So these are the providers, right? So email provider, Google. If you want to do Google sign in, we can add that. If you want to do Firebase sign in, we can do that. We will be focusing on email sign in now. So we'll go here and we will add Firebase auth email Flutter. This is a dependency that we need to add if we want to do email password authentication. If you see, if we want to do Google authentication, there will be it's not seeing Firebase. Pub add Firebase core, Firebase yes, it's here. Serverpod auth Firebase Flutter. Similar, there has to be serverpod auth Google Flutter. So here we are doing email authentication. So serverpod auth email Flutter is what we will be adding. So after the shared, we will have, and with same version. This is important. Add same version. And again we are doing pubget in the Flutter. It's taking some time. So meanwhile, let's look at other things. Basics, not basics, etc. So as you can see, after doing this in the Flutter side, after adding the auth shared Flutter in the Flutter side, we have to do some client tweaking. So that's what we will do next. Okay, the thing is done. Then I will close these and pubspec.yaml, all the pubspec.yaml I close. Then we will go to lib main.dot. This is where our Flutter code resides. First of all, let's clean this a little bit. I will create a new folder and create pages, and I will add homepage.dot, and let me move this homepage. This homepage, command X to new folder, command V. Material, then what else to do? Client, the imports. Okay, it is done. Then we have also fixed the import, command S. Yes, so it is done. Forget this for now. We will fix this. Now the server is not running, that's why it is continuously loading, and let's forget that. So the next part is to create a session manager. So we will create a new folder, then we will have src, we'll make it src, and command we will create a new file called session manager dot okay, to be there. Okay, session manager dot, and what this file will do is it will initialize our client. So we will replace this client from here to here. So will initialize client. So future initialize session manager. Okay, this is one method. I will do async, and we will have a late variable, which is a client. We also have a late variable, which is a session manager. These two will be initialized. This session manager is actually coming from Serverpod auth shared Flutter. Okay, so next the other thing we have to do is to initialize the client. So first of all, we will copy this client, Command X, I'll cut it out, then we will paste it here. So this will initialize our this client, but rather than this we have to add a few more parameters. One is the authentication key manager. So we are doing authentication, so for our client we have to add one more parameter, that is the authentication key manager. And let me fix this. Okay, this extra parameter we have to pass in order to authentication. So this will enable our client to track our authentications. And the other thing is session manager. So we have to initialize our session manager. So session manager. So our session manager will have a required field called caller. It will take the from client, it will take modules and auth module. Do you remember in our generator we added modules, right? So if we go to server not lib config generator.yaml, we have added these modules and we gave a nickname, right? So this nickname will be reflected here. So it will tell client get the modules, get the auth module. So that auth module is actually a representation of our Serverpod auth. This is what happens. So we initialize our session manager and we will say await session manager dot initialize. Like this we will initialize our session manager. Now we will call this initialize session manager in our main.tat file. First of all, we will make it async and await initialize session manager, and we also do widget flutter binding dot ensure initialized. This is also required. Command X, this is how, and we will fix the imports here. Now the client is actually coming from src session manager product. Yes, with this everything is fine. The initialization of our client is fine. For authentication, this is how the client has to be initialized. Okay, this is our initial setup. Cool. Now we will set up a sign in page. So right now we don't have a sign in page. So from pages we will have a new file called sign in page dot, and it will be a stateless widget called sign in page. So this is what we will be having, and of course we will have a scaffold. It will have app bar title text sign in. It will have sign in, then it is a sender title. I love sender titles. So then body will be sender child for now let's give a text. Just a text. Now let's call this sign in page in our, for now let's replace this home page and let's give a sign in page. Now let's see our app. This is our app. Now I will bring it here. Okay, so this is our app. Sign in page. Okay, so now the next thing is to actually implement the sign-in logic. So we'll go to providers, email providers. So we can see, in order to implement the sign-in logic, first there are a few things we have to do. One thing is there are a few things that Serverpod gives us in from scratch. One is the sign in with email button. So we can replace this sign in text with sign in with email button. See from where it is coming from. It is coming from the Serverpod auth email Flutter. We have added one email sign in dependency, right? From there it is coming, and it has a caller, which is a required parameter. What will be the caller? It will be client dot modules dot auth, the same one that we, okay, that's fine, the same one that we created in the session manager, managers, whatever. This same auth module we have to pass it to our sign in with email button. Okay, now let's do a hot restart. I'll do one thing. I will rerun the, it is not working, means rerun the app. Stop. Let's rerun the app once again. Yeah, the app ran. So now you can see there is a sign in with email button. So from where this button came from, it just it is just a utility button that is created by the Serverpod. Okay, Serverpod email auth email Flutter. That's where this sign in with email button coming from. So when you click on sign in with email button, you can see a pre-built UI, pre-built form. So it will ask for username, email, password. All three are mandatory. And if I click create account, right now we can't create an account because there is one more step that we have to do in our server side. That's exactly what we are going to do next. So as you can see, the thing is, when you create sign in, when you click on email and when you click create button, you may have seen in most of the sign in accounts, we will get a verification mail. So in order to validate the email we are entering is right or wrong, so Serverpod handles that thing also under the hood for us. So when you click on email and when you click create button, the next page you will see is a enter verification code page. Okay, and in that page you have to enter your verification code and submit. Then only the sign up process will complete. So in order to handle that, we have to do some more methods in our server side. This is the thing, server side configuration. We have to import this package and we have to add this line of code. Okay, so let's do exactly the same. When we go to the server, we go to lib, we have to go to server.dark file pod.dart. This is where after this is when our server starts. So before this we have to add this command C, command V, and don't forget to add the import. see, and we added the import and we added this. So what this will do, when we create enter all our infos, then we click on create button, this part will be triggered, and depending on our requirement, a code will be generated. Okay, so for now, for our debugging, since it is our development environment, we will not send an email, rather we will do print our verification code and we will enter it manually. So print validation code for email is validation code. Print validation code for password. This is for password resetting validation code. So you may have seen two scenarios. When you I have an account button, when you click forgot password, in order to reset your password, you again get a validation code emailed into your email account, right? So same things happening here. So uh, in real life, what you should do is you should remove this print method with some mail sending service. So there are some services like Mandrill, SendGrid. These all are some of the services that allow us to send email. Is not loading. Basically, these all are the some of the services that we can use to send a verification code to a particular email. So we can use those services to send email to our user. So right now we will just print it and we will use it. Now the next step is we have to see whether the signing in is happening or not. For that, let's start our server. Not in the role maintenance, we will be doing it in the so we don't have to apply migrations also. If I remember, we have already applied our migrations. Yes, we just applied all our migrations, so nothing much. So we just have to start our server. Yeah, after the server is started, so actually where will the user information will be stored? It will be stored in this server user info table. So right now, if we see, select everything from Serverpod user info. This is the table name. Command C, command V. Sorry. Right now, if we select, there is nothing, no particular input are there in this. Oh, sorry. Command C. Right now, what is this? When you execute it, see, right now there is no entry, no particular entry is there in our Serverpod user info table. So right now, let's log in and see. So when you do print Aslam, email is aslam@gmail.com, password is 12345678, at least 7 is required. Then we add create account. See, we when reached a validation code page, and we have seen the validation code for email is this. So command C, command V, hello paste, command V. So basically this validation code is something that we have to be we have to send the user via a mailing service, mailer. So right now, since it is debug mode, we are doing it like this. So the user will enter the validation code, and then when you click sign in, so when the user will be signed in. Right now we have not managed that state, but when you go in debug, you can see user is signed in, user found. If you query our database, you can see, you can see a user is aslam@gmail.com, username aslam has been created. So right now a user has been created. Now what we should do is to if the user is signed in, we have to send the user to the home page, not the sign in page. So for that, we again we will convert this my app into stateful widget, and we will say init state. We have to add a listener to the session manager. We'll say session manager dot add listener. If any change has occurred into the session manager, we'll call set state. What will set state do? It will refresh the state. So uh, uh, one method to find whether the user is signed in is session manager dot is signed in. So it says if the user is signed in, then send him to the home page. Else, if he is not signed in, then of course send him to the sign in page. See, when we click save, now the user is signed in, so he was redirected to the home page. One thing we can right now do is we can add a logout button here. Okay, so when we go to the home page, in the app bar, in the actions sections, we'll add a icon button. So it will have on pressed, the icon will be icons dot logout. Okay, how will we log out the user? We again call our session manager, but there is a method called sign out. That's it. So if you do this, we will successfully sign out the user. Let's check that. If we click here, user is signed out. If I click sign in, now we already have an account. So we can have, I have an account, email, enter the email aslam@gmail.com, and if we click the password 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, that's the password. If I click sign in, I am signed in. That's it. So that's how we manage authentication in Serverpod. That's how we manage authentication in Serverpod. Now one last thing remaining is to implement relationships. How we will implement relationships in database? Like right now, as you can see, whichever user is logging in, the same to do will be shown. So I will show you. So if I am signing in, I create another account, new user, random at gmail.com, password 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8, same. If I do create account, validation code comes. I take the validation code, command C, I paste it, allow paste. Then if I do sign in, see, this is actually a different user, but still I am seeing the same to do. Now what we have to do is we have to tie up this to do to a particular user. So we have to that is we have to implement relationships in database. Let's see exactly the same. Okay, so now talking about relations in database, let's see what exactly do I mean. So as you can see in this tables, there are a number of there is a to do table and a server user info table, and the server for user table holds the details of the user, as you can see, ID, user identity, all those stuff. And to-dos table, as you can see, when you are querying, select to-dos, it holds the to-do of uh, uh, the created to-dos. So how exactly do we connect this to-do with a user? So for that is where a concept of foreign key comes. So in this to-do table, we add one more column called user ID. Okay, and what does this user ID column holds? It holds the ID of the created user. We all know each user will be having a ID which will be unique. So that ID will correspond to a specific user. Only that user will be having that ID. So we will be adding that ID into our to-dos table under the user ID column. So by that we will understand, okay, this to do is belonging to this particular user, and by that we can map each to do to each user. So when a particular user one logins, we fetch to do which having a user ID of user one. So likewise we can filter our to dos accordingly. That is how, under the basically in a basic sense, that's what relations lets us do in a SQL based database, like Postgres database. So that's what we are going to achieve next. So in order to apply relations in database, we will see how we can achieve. We will go to the server side. Of course, where we want to go, where are we uh, defining our schemas? Inside lib src models folder. So in models we have to-do.yaml. So this is where we have defined our to-do table and class. So here we will be adding one more uh, space, one more field called user ID, and what it holds an integer. Why integer? Because each id is a integer. So Serverpod assigns each id which is a integer, so it's the user id's type will be integer. So now comes the another important part. So how will we map this user id to a user id present already created user id? So for that what we have to do is, there is a keyword called relation. This is how we create a relation. And then there is a field called parent. What is parent is equal to, what is the parent name? The parent will be the server user info. What is server user info? Server user info is the table where all the users data will be created. So we will say server user info is the parent. This is it. This is all what we have to do in order to create a simple relation for to do in this application. There will be there we can, for our more complex application and data structure, we will be creating more complex relation, but for this is all we need. Okay, if you are wondering from where I got this, it's all in the documentation, right? So when you go to database, there is a field called relation. So if you go, there are different types of relations. See, one-to-one relation, one-to-many relation. So in it, it has told how it has to be mentioned. A relation, its parent will be address ID. So we can also give object relations. We can give relation depending on a, rather than an ID and object. These all are different types of relation. If you are interested, you have to go through this documentation and like experiment with the different types of relation. So this is like the basic relation that we need. This is only for this application to work, right? So after adding one field, what is the next step? Next step is we have to apply migrations. Now this field has to be reflected in the database, right? In order to reflect it into the database, right now as we can see only 4 fields are there, but in order to reflect it here, we have to create a migration first. So when we go into the server folder, we have to create a new migration. So when you do serverpod create migration, click, we get one error. Not error, it's a warning. One or more columns are added to the table to do, which cannot be added to the table migration. The complete table will be deleted and recreated. So what does it say? So it already have one table with to-dos table, and it already have some columns. So normally how it should happen is, if we are adding another to-do with a new column, there has to be an option where if already there are certain data in the to-do, there has to be an option the newly created column may can have a null value or some default value. But right now serverpod is not supporting that. So what will happen is it is under development, in the sense hopefully in the version 2 or something it will come. But at this moment these columns will be deleted. We have to delete all the data in the column, and then we will be applying the migration. So in order to do that, we have to add migrate aborted, use force to ignore the warning. So we have to add this flag force and enter. It will create a migration, and if you see in the migration.sql, it is adding a one more user field called user ID. It is creating the table to-dos with one more column user ID, which is an integer and nullable. As you can see, it is a foreign key, blah blah blah. This is all SQL stuff. This is the one good thing about serverpod, right? It is actually giving us an ORM also. What is ORM? ORM is something allows us to do this database migration, allows us to write simple Dart or whatever programming language we are dealing with, the simple Dart queries, and we will be getting away from these kind of SQL. We, as programmers, we not have to learn much of these SQL queries. That's the basic idea behind ORM, right? So SQL is no, serverpod is actually allowing us that. Okay. So anyway, we created the migration, then we have to apply this migration to our database, isn't it? So what was the command? Dot, so go up, dot run bin slash main dot. By at this time we have to run it with the flag apply migrations. We can either do role maintenance, but we will be running our let the server run. So we will do this. We will return just creating. Cool to create. Yes, cool, it worked. So now if we query our to-dos, you can see created. It didn't work. Oh, sorry, the flag is sorry, I misspelled the flag. It is apply migrations. It is not apply migration. That's why it didn't reflected in our database. It is apply migrations. Migration with an S. Now let's see. Okay, applied database migration. Now if we query the to do, you can see all our previous data was deleted, which is not a good thing actually, but still all our previous data was deleted, and it added a new field called user ID, which is a foreign key. It will be a foreign key. Why? It is actually related to our user server user info. So why, what is the benefit of this? I will give you an the benefit is, if there is a to do and if we are giving a user ID 100, but if the user with user ID 100 doesn't exit, it will not create the entry. It will not allow us to put the entry in our database. It is very strict. So it will say, bro, this id, the user id with 100 doesn't exist, so I can, this is not a valid entry. I can't create a to do entry. So if a particular user with that id exit, then only we can create an valid to do entry. That's the one major benefit of using a relation, foreign key relation. Okay, fine. Now let's tweak our code a little bit. As you can see, there is now user id field. Now what is remaining? We also have to create uh, we also have to generate our code, right? So we right now we only have applied our migration to the database. This has to be reflected in our Flutter also. Right now, as we can see, Flutter is not giving any error. But why? Because it is not reflected in the Flutter. In order to reflect in Flutter, what we should do? We should generate our client code. So what was the command to generate client code? Cd. I'm going to the server again, and serverpod generate. This was the command, right? In order to generate, so we changed our schema. Now we have to generate it. Generating. Cool, generated. Now you can see the Flutter is throwing error. Why? Where is it error coming? It is throwing error in the home page. So what is the error? So it is saying, oh, there is one more parameter called user id, but you are not setting it. That's what it is saying. So how will we set the user id? So we have to set user id. How will we get the user id? We will get user id from the session manager. We have session manager. So I told you the session manager is what tracking the session. Who is the user that is signed in? Is there any user that is signed in? All will be tracked by the session manager, this global variable. That's the uh, job of session manager. So we have session manager dot, we have signed in user. Okay, signed in user dot, it has a id. Signed in user has an id. There are other parameters also, but the thing we need is signed in user dot id. We have to do null check, so it will not be null. If it is null, then we will not be reaching this parameter, this page, right? So if the user is signed in only, we will be reaching here. So it is like, it won't be null, id will not be null. So as you can see, if we do session info dot user info, this is the actual user info. So we will be getting an id, user identifier, what is the username, full name, what is the email, when is created. These all we will be getting access to using signed in user. So you can see full name, email, scope name, user identifier. One we are interested in is id. Okay, so that's it. Now when we are creating a to do, we are actually giving a user id. Now the database knows, okay, this to do belongs to this particular user. Now are we done? No, we are not done. So while getting the to do also, we have to specify, okay, only get the to do of the concerned user. Right now all the to dos will be fetched. So we have to change that logic a little bit. So when you go here to do dot endpoint, in get all to dos, we have to specify, don't get all the to dos. We have to get only the to do of a concerned user. So first of all, when we are getting all the to dos, we have to do is get final user id is equal to get the user id. How will we get the user id? We will get the user id from the session. Okay, session dot, there is a user authentication, there is a auth, session dot auth dot authenticated user id. Okay, this part gives the id of the currently signed in user if anyone is signed in, else we have to await it. So it will be a it will be a nullable integer. Okay, if the no one is signed in, it will give null. So we have to do a check again. If user ID is equal to null, if no one is signed in, then we have to throw error, throw any exception. We will be throwing an exception and we will say unauthorized request. The user is not authorized, so you will not be getting any to do from me. So is this enough? No. Now we just got the ID and we check whether it is an authenticated user ID. If now the other flag is find has one more flag. Okay, where? So where is a flag that we can use to filter where to do. Let's say where is if a particular to do dot id to do dot user id dot equals user id. Okay, what does this mean? So first of all, it's a get the to dos, but not all to dos. It has to that particular to do has to satisfy this condition. To do dot its user ID has to be equal to the currently logged in user ID. Okay, in that case only fetch all the to dos. Else don't fetch the that to do. So that's it, that is what we were missing. Now if we do now if we do a sign in, we will see only the to do of the signed in user. Let's see, let's do a hot restart. So you will be initially seeing a empty screen. Create your to do screen, and if we create a to do, so right now you can see I think the signed in user is let's see, Serverpod user info. I think the signed in user is aslam@gmail.com. So let's create some to do. So I will be creating one to do. Its title is to do aslam. To do, and I click save. I got one exception. What is the exception? Oh, sorry, I did it. We should again. We didn't generate, so we changed this endpoint. Let me cancel it. Actually we changed the to do endpoint, right? But in order that endpoint, in order this to reflect, we should again generate the code. So this particular logic is not right now, Flutter doesn't know, or our client doesn't know, okay, this thing has been changed. So we again have to run serverpod generate. So we generated code. The other thing we should do is we should restart our server. So we made certain changes to our to do endpoint. So we have to restart that server to uh, you know uh, reflect on that endpoints. So right now we don't have to do apply migration. We already have applied. So we will restart. Server is getting restarted, and yeah, server restarted. Now again, try again. So correct. Aslam to do Then this is description. If you click save, as you can see, menu to do is created. Now if you look at the to-dos table, you can see there is a to-do with title, description, it is completed, and we also see a foreign key that is user ID 2. Okay, now let's try logging in with another account. Let's log out, sign in with email. I have an account. Email is random@gmail.com. This is our email. The password is 1234567 8. Signing in. Oh shoot, shouldn't have. Okay, it was random mail, I guess. Then we will sign in with another email, aslam@gmail.com. 1234567 8. Sign in. There you go. So before we were signed in with random Gmail, now we have signed in with Aslam's Gmail. So now when you create another to do, new to do, visual Aslam account. Okay, when I click save, I am creating one more to do, another one, plus description, save. Okay, we are now having two different to dos. If we query our to do database, you can see there are total three to dos. One to do is of user ID 2 and the other two is for user ID 3. Now if we again sign out, sign in, I have an account random@gmail.com 1234567 8. Sign in. You can see only our to-dos. Yeah, that's it, folks. So what all have we learned? We have learned how to set up that Serverpod, how to do our database connection, to do app authentication, and some useful Docker commands we have seen. So basically, we have covered most of our targets that we needed. I hope everyone found this tutorial valuable. Now what you can do from your end is go to these uh, documentations and try to create a bit more complex applications. In this application itself, you can create just think how you can scale, adding complete buttons, adding on complete button, and you can see how to add more authentication, right? Rather than using user authentic Google and email and password sign in, how to add Google sign in, how to add Firebase sign in, all this you can just try by your own, and also how to add a profile page for the user. That's also a use case, right? We can have an profile image. Right now when you go to the authentication part, setup, when we go email and the basics, yeah, the basics part, you can see, not basics, working with users, yeah, this part you can see we have a editing our user image, how we can edit our user image, all those stuff. And right now we are using our custom made, the Serverpod's custom made signing. Just explore how we can do our own custom UIs. So that UI is not that intuitive, right? If you want your own UI, you should be able to do that. Just explore this. This is actually straightforward. Just explore this stuff and make a bit more complex, a bit more functionalities. Try to add and try experimenting by yourself. These all are things from that you can do, and you can become better at Serverpod and creating full stack applications using Dart. I hope everyone liked this. If you like this and if you have any suggestions, the comment box is always open for you. I would like to hear from you. What are your thoughts? What if you want any other specific tutorials, or if you want more tutorial regarding Serverpod, just let me know in the comment box below. If you want any other specific tutorials like more full stack application development, maybe not using Serverpod, maybe using next Node.js Express as a backend, whatever ideas you can think of, or if you want to see more Flutter related tutorials, specific tutorials, just put it in the comment box below. I will be looking into it and I will be creating more tutorials. So yeah, I hope everyone liked it. Have a nice day. Happy coding. Cheers. Bye bye guys. Bye.